our audience hasn't got their Bridget kick in so long. Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis, St. Paul. We got a great show for you. Let's get to it. What are we going to be talking about today, MAGA Jesse?
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff. We'll be talking about Democrats obstructing the legislature, how there is a Republican majority, but the Democrats don't want to play ball. We'll be talking about Walter Hudson's meltdown. Obviously, the big baby is freaking out on Twitter, wasting his life away by spending his time in, wasteful Twitter arguments. He needs to log off and get back into reality because he's got a big dose of reality with the fact that he's been fired by the party, supposedly. So we'll be discussing all of that. We'll be discussing the Facebook overhaul and the speaker vote, which came out with some interesting results in the U.S. Congress.
You know, the show would be good enough to do just on the Facebook overhaul because it's a huge story. But the lead story today is unbelievable. And joining us for the first time since we think the 1st of November is Bridget. How you doing, Bridget?
I'm doing great and excited to be caught up on everything because I literally have been so out of the loop.
You've not only been out of the loop, you've been out of the country. You were in Uganda,
That's true.
Of all places.
It was fun. It was an experience, but I definitely appreciate America. I'm like, so when we landed, I was like, Jacqueline, we need to get a video of us kissing the ground because I'm so happy to be back.
I know the experience, by the way.
Yeah.
I've lived 2 years in other countries. Some might call them shithole countries, by the way.
But we have Tucker, Truth Seeker, and Mary K21. Welcome.
Of course we have Tucker. Bridget's here. She'll be reading your
Tucker's
comments
always
live.
here.
By the way, if you want to interrupt at the same time, hit that Rumble Rant button. We'll read your comment live on air. Barely hanging in there is the guy running the dials, Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. Oh, you don't have your mic set up? Okay. And that's probably fine because the guy's coughing up a lung. He's probably got COVID. He's in denial. All right. Let's put on our mask, guys. That'll protect us.
But Dawson's vaccinated, so he's good.
Yeah, I know. Aren't you not supposed to get it? If you get the vaccine, you can't get COVID. God, these guys are such liars.
Sorry, Dawson.
We're going to get into that on the Facebook thing. So anyhow, great show for you today. We got probably a week left for you to still win your tickets to Jordan B. Peterson. He's coming to the Excel Energy Center. Go to truthhurtsnews.com/JBP as in Jordan B. Peterson. About a week left to win these seats. They're front row seats. I bought these things. I want these things, but I'm going to give them to you if you win this contest. So go to Jordan B. Peterson or truthhurtsnews.com/JBP. Brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy home or sell home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. Warren is not just a great real estate agent and a friend and a guy who believes like you and me in politics. He also sings in my church choir. Now that's pretty damn amazing. Call Warren, 612-419-7453. And if you're buying a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com or you could go check them out on Facebook or Twitter. They call it X these days. Either one, Facebook or Twitter /X. Go check them out. Great page. They believe in the same things that you and I believe in. Also brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. All these companies run by real patriots. Okay. Bridget, you've been gone for a while, and we might have some new people watching this, and we might be having people watch this from outside of the state of Minnesota. So how do I even start this, Jesse? The last time we saw you, we think was early November.
I think so.
We haven't seen you since election, Bridget.
I know.
I remember you sent me a picture of like a malaria-infested room at one point.
Oh gosh, I was gonna hope not. I think I'm out of the window for getting malaria, which is nice.
That's good. Yes. I mean, COVID you'll probably get because of Dawson, but
that's okay. I've had it before.
So the election goes. Interestingly, in Minnesota, the Democrats win this special election in Senate District 45, so they have a 34-33 majority in the Senate. And we were off by one member in our estimate. We thought the House would stay Democrat by one vote or by one member. It turned out it's a tie. Actually, that would have been two members. So it's a tie. So it's a 67. No. Wait, you're getting way ahead of yourself. I'm telling you on election night. Okay. Actually, we didn't even know on election night, to be honest with you. And at one point, Brad Tabke and Dan Wogemont, we call him Sylvester the Cat,
Yeah.
both had lost, okay? Oh my God, this story is so interesting. God, I don't, like literally, we've had shows, you guys remember, so we've had shows where we didn't know what we were going to talk about, and now our shows just write themselves. In fact, we might have to do more shows per week at this point with how things are going. This is the I mean, how could you say after 2024 you could get any crazier in politics? I'm going to get to a point here in this first part of our show where we might not actually have a legislature in existence in Minnesota. In fact, I'll show you in a press conference where the Democrats are arguing there's currently not a Minnesota House. I am not making this up. They are literally arguing we are being taxed without representation. But let's back up.
Yeah,
so
I'm
election
so
night,
confused
tie in the
now.
house. I know she's so
I'm like, well,
confused.
how
Why
is it
wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you be confused? This is a
Yeah.
crazy story. Tied at 67 to 67. First time since 1979 there was going to be a tie. Okay, 1978 election. The voters picked the House, and it's a 67-67 tie. Okay, Senate 34-33. Where do we even start, Jesse? Let's go with this. Two elections went to recount. One being House District 54A, Mortsville District, Brad Tabke. Turns out 21 ballots are missing. We've already all ignored the one ballot in precinct 12 or whatever that was, but 20 of those ballots were thrown in the trash can by an election official. Tabke allegedly won by 14 votes. So in other words, 20 votes is more than the margin of victory in Brad Tabke's case. Representative Pam Altendorf from Red Wing alludes to some other things. We haven't been able to validate this, but she says there's some other anomalies in that election. I will park that off to the side for now. 20 votes thrown in the trash, admitted by the county attorney. Some election official in Shakopee threw them in the trash, and
when
they
you
can't
say
be
that,
counted.
do people know who's like? If I had gone and voted, would I know if that was my vote or not?
They
there a way?
believe that they have got it narrowed down to who it was, and then they submit this to the court, and then you'll see in the press conference, they'll show you that they're not 100% certain,
Oh, okay.
right? So this is the problem, right? If we want election integrity, every vote's got to count. So right now, 20 votes thrown in the trash. So that's cases in front of a court, which actually, Jesse, I don't even know why it's in front of a court, because in the end of the day, the people that decide is the legislature. They decide who are members. Okay?
Right, and it's still good for establishing legal precedent. It's still important to make sure that a court rules on it, but you're right that ultimately, whether it be the Senate or the House, the legislative chamber is the ultimate body that gets to decide whether to accept the election returns of a given member. And especially in this case, when you cannot be sure that Brad Tabke actually won, the Republicans cannot accept that. We have been ahead of the game, and Republicans are finally catching up to what we have been saying all along.
And by we, he's talking about Action for Liberty. Well, of course, we've been talking about
too.
the show, but Action for Liberty is definitely. By the way, Jesse works a lot with Action for Liberty, writes articles still for them this day. So, or today. So, this is. I mean, by the way, Action for Liberty is all over the news. We'll get into that in the Walter Hudson segment, which is interesting. Okay, so Bridget, then, oh my God, this is so crazy. So currently, the plan is Tabke believes he's going to be placed in office. House District 40B, which is here, Roseville, Minnesota. Curtis Johnson, he doesn't live in the district that he ran for, and a court found that he was not residing in the district, and essentially confirmed a successful election challenge petition. I don't know if I'm saying that legally correct, but sounds right.
About right.
Anyhow, the Republicans sued to stop his election certification, and so it was a successful challenge, and he's not going to challenge it to the Supreme Court, which means there's a vacancy on the first day legislative session, January 14th. So 67 to 66 Republicans over Democrats. Now, why? This is going to be important as we get into this press conference. Why is there a majority of Republicans over Democrats? Because they cheated, right? Curtis Johnson ran illegally.
So do they do a special election for that? Like they have to.
Great question. Bridget, my God, the story just keeps getting more interesting.
How do they fill that?
She's right. And anyone that reads the statute would understand one way. In fact, let's pull up the statute. Dawson, I'm sorry to do this to you. Is it easy for you to flip to the well, I was going to say flip to the previous one, but it's not on there. So let me just quickly pull
What is it? 204D.19.
204D. Minnesota statute 204D 0.19.
I think that's the right one.
Sounds right. Yep, it is. I'm going to put this right now into, I'm just going to dump it down into, I'll just put it as D1 right now, Dawson. This is just so fascinating. You can't write this. I mean, literally. Okay, so this is a statute, and what happened was there was so the subdivision 1 is a vacancy that's filled at general election. It's essentially if the legislature is done meeting and it's more than 150 days before the next general election, then it goes to the general election. So this is Kelly Morrison. This came into play. Kelly Morrison resigned because she was running for Congress, and so then instead of having a special election which costs money, they just did it at election day in November 5th.
Oh, so they just kept it vacant.
That's why. Yep, that's why so technically, if there was a special session, Senate District 45 would not have a state senator. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So then the next one is what happens when the legislature's in session. This comes into play a lot. Kurt Dowd, remember he resigned. Ruth Richardson, Democrat, resigned. So they take on a new job, or he makes his lobbying gig more official. So anyhow, that comes into play. And then you have, go down to the bottom, see where it says writ when vacancy results from an election contest. So this is clearly, subdivision 4. This is clearly what's in play here. If a vacancy results, it looks like we got a
Welcome
rumble
back,
right here.
rant from Bad Hat Harry. Nice. Thank you, Bad Hat.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just wants to say, should say hello, Bridget. That's what you should have used it for.
Well, I'm like, is it?
Well, that's your rumble rant there. Oh, by the way,
Hi,
show
Bad
your
Hat.
cookies. K-Wall and T-Wall made you cookies.
Oh, I did.
I just want proof that I did
Proof
not
that
eat
they were
them.
delivered.
I did not eat them.
And
a
do I
gift
dare
card.
try them this late?
A little
again.
Caribou gift card. They like
They
to
look
keep
good.
us caffeinated, by the way.
I love Caribou, so I actually really appreciate this.
There
Thank
you go. And so, but that's proof those cookies were not touched. Now, they might be no good anymore after a month because this is from the Christmas event. Just
Yeah, that's a
FYI.
long time ago.
I know. They stared at me. I mean, they're good. They're good cookies. Like I needed to eat more cookies over Christmas
You
break.
can always remake the recipe since they provided it.
Yeah. All right. If a vacancy results from a successful election contest, which it did, the governor shall issue 22 days after the first day of the legislative session a writ calling for a special election. Okay. The legislative session starts next Tuesday, January 14th. So 22 days after January 14th, February 5th is when he can call or actually issue that writ. He issued it the Friday after Christmas. And by the way, he might have had a point had Jamie Becker Finn, who was the current rep, if she just resigned, then there was a vacancy due to her. Maybe there was a point there. She didn't, because I'm sure she still wanted her paycheck, right? Because they get paid annually, even though they're not in legislative session. So literally, there's no vacancy in that district. They're arguing, this is so crazy. They're arguing Curtis Johnson, who a court said you can't be in office, and he's not taking an oath of office. They're arguing that he resigned from his office. That's what they're going to go to court arguing a member-elect, not member placed, not an actual member, but a member-elect has resigned the office. Like, this is the shenanigans they're pulling.
So dumb.
So this has now got a lawsuit against it, and the Libertarian Party is joining the Republican Party. You see that one there, Jesse? Libertarian LP is joining because they had very little time to get a candidate, because they had to have to collect signatures to get a candidate on the ballot.
Oh, yeah.
And Walz didn't give them time to do that.
Well, no, I think the Libertarians and any third party or independent should have that opportunity because they obviously were not given a proper amount of time to be able to file. And when you look at the short time window, and considering the fact that Walz put this out there so quickly, there's a fact that, there was someone who wanted to file for one of these districts that wasn't given the opportunity to because they were out of town. So when those types of things are going on, it shows that this writ of election was not done properly. It was done illegitimately, not according to the law, and therefore it needs to be the seat needs to be vacated in 40B. So I think that the House Republicans, maybe we'll talk about this a little later, but the House Republicans also need to reject the election certification of 40B following that special election because the writ of election was not done properly. It's no fault of the candidate, whoever's going to end up winning 40B. But, Walz needs to be punished for the fact that he did not do this properly. And someone cannot be seated as a member of the legislature if the writ of election was not done correctly. So I'm calling on the House Republicans to not just reject Brad Tabke in 54A, but they also must reject the 40B special election race results once those come in as well.
I hadn't thought of that. That's a good point, because this is going to be in front of the Supreme Court,
Right.
and the Supreme Court's full of lefties. It's full of lefties when Justice Paul
Tyson.
Tyson.
Yep.
Is it Tyson or Tyson?
Well, Steve
Tyson.
Simon
I
says
think
Tyson.
Yeah, Tyson.
So
He used to be the DFL's speaker, right?
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
he literally is on the right side on that court. Like when they did this most ridiculous self-defense interpretation of Minnesota laws, he was on the right side of that issue. That's just to show you how terribly left the Supreme Court is. And of course it is, because it's all Dayton and Walz appointees.
yeah.
So that's right, man. Even if the Supreme Court says this is a
Right, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm saying with Alex Plekish and the MNGOP taking on the lawsuit, it's perfect. It's great. I appreciate that they're doing that. It sets up good legal
really
precedent. But the more important thing is that the House Republicans grow a spine and actually fight on election integrity, because for a long time they haven't. Now is their only opportunity. They want to maintain and keep and expand their House majority. Their only opportunity is going to be by rejecting these election certificates. And, the Democrats are going to say that Republicans are not allowing the will of the people to move forward and whatnot. But this is a complete problem that was created by Tim Walz. Republicans wouldn't have any opportunity to question the 40B election result if it wasn't for Walz putting out this writ of election that wasn't done properly. So the Republicans need to play hardball, and we have to remember, if the shoe was on the other foot, if the Democrats had this kind of control, if things were flipped in 54A and 40B, it's no question in our minds that the Democrats would take full opportunity of it. They would take full advantage. They would make sure that they maintain and keep and expand and leverage their majority. So Republicans need to be expected and held to that same standard.
And let us not forget, we're in this predicament because a Democrat candidate decided to run for an office he wasn't eligible to run, and the Democrats went along with it.
Did they?
He does not reside in the district.
Oh. Did they recruit him to run?
I don't have a good enough. I mean, you would know a little bit better. We did track the dynamics.
He was definitely the establishment candidate. So, I don't know exactly if the House Democrat caucus decided to recruit this Curtis Johnson or not, but he was obviously their selected choice following the endorsing convention, because the other guy who was running, David Gottfried, had dropped out. The Democrats were obviously all lined up behind his campaign. They didn't seem to have any issue. Otherwise, they would have ran a primary challenge to Curtis Johnson in that primary, but nobody ran against him at that time, proving that the establishment Democrats were perfectly fine with him and, running his campaign. So, I don't know exactly, but yeah, now the Democrats put up a radical who has the support of Brian Curran, they/she. So drunk driving, they/she is very happy with the results of 40B. So Republicans need to draw a line in the sand and say that election integrity is the most important issue.
Okay.
Is they/she actually she or a he? What is
It's
that?
It's a she.
She, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a she.
But Kozlowski, we see in this press conference, has gone full dude now at this point, right?
Who has?
Kozlowski, Alicia, is it Alicia?
Two-Spirit.
Oh, wow. I recognize
Yeah.
that name from.
Yeah.
'cause
Alicia Kozlowski.
Remember,
Yeah.
they got the whole alphabet, the whole
Oh my
LGBTQI. They're so woke. They have the 2S part, which you rarely see, the 2S plus.
I see BDC 1450 says, "Welcome back, Bridget, and thank you." But I think this person's new since I've been here. At least.
Yeah, well, I mean, geez, it's
I
been a
think
year,
so.
so I guess it's.
It has not been a year.
Well, you
but
definitely haven't
technically a
been
new
here
year,
this
so-
year.
Yeah.
You
And Tucker's
that is a
antsy to get
fact.
on.
By the way, the Brad Ganser, the Chicago Bears are undefeated this year.
Brad.
Cowboys aren't. and
Brad is there. I saw him earlier.
and so Tucci knows the Packers do not have a win this year. Oh man, it's amazing the Bears
Has
actually
Tucci
beat
been
the.
here recently?
Yeah, we mostly have him zoom in. He's got
Okay.
a lot of things. Tucci's doing some pretty good stuff, some pretty amazing work.
Okay.
Drunk driving, he would be welcome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he should show up next week. Oh, we haven't got to the story. Okay, so Bridget,
Well, that's entertaining though, so.
yes, she is.
It's kind
So
of fun to have around.
definitely fun to have around. That's correct. Bridget,
Yes.
the special election, as Walz has called it, is for January 27th or 28th. 27th,
And when does
I
the
believe.
legislature begin?
Um,
January.
it begins
So
on
it's
the
before or after
14th.
Oh, okay. So after.
So it'd be the 28th. They're going to do it on
Okay.
Tuesday, right? So January 28th is when the special election will happen, which would place this person, if they get placed, probably by the end of that week, I would imagine, right? They certify the election. Okay, so that's the plan as of now, which means the Republicans have 67 members and the Democrats have, the Republicans have 67 members, the Democrats have 66. Who has a
What is-
majority?
Well, obviously
Republicans.
Republicans.
Right.
But
They're arguing they don't. They call it a governing
if that,
majority.
seat is filled, though, can they?
Well, then it
is the Speaker of the
I
House
know.
the
Oh,
same?
I know where you're going with this one,
If it's
Bridget.
filled with a Democrat, that's what I wonder. I'm like,
And it
do
will,
they
right?
redo- Yeah, most likely.
It's a Democrat seat.
So then, what happens to the Speaker of the House?
Oh, well, we don't know any of this stuff. I mean, I'm telling you what.
Yeah, so
I
interesting.
watched a Republican and a Democrat press conference yesterday, and I was saying this to Tony. I was like, I don't recall ever watching one of these things with so much interest because they are snooze fests. They're boring. These guys just reiterate stupid talking points. They're lame. Imagine, you know how boring it is to watch a Mark Johnson press conference?
Yeah.
You know, and as bad as a Mark Johnson press conference is, oh my God, imagine you got to go watch Ann Put Me to Rest in the Senate talk.
Who's that again?
Ann Rest, where is she from? Some
Ann
Democrat
Rest, I don't know if I
from
know
the
who
she
metro
is. I can't
area.
remember.
Ann Put Me to Rest has got to be the most boring person in politics, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather watch Mitch McConnell's greatest hits than that.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so they got a 2-week-ish governing majority, as the Democrats call it. No one's denying that. That election now is being contested in court, and you're right, they could contest it at the legislature. If they followed the damn laws, as it was clearly written there, means they couldn't even call a special election until February 5th. So this person shouldn't take office until March. Democrat district. Okay, that's the House, Bridget. Remember, on election night, it was a
that's just the
tie.
House.
Right now, it's a governing majority. The Senate's a tie right now. The Senate is a
Oh
tie.
my gosh.
Okay, so Carrie Dietzig passed away from cancer. She was battling cancer. She was the Senate Majority Leader, pretty much stepped down from that role last year. She passed away. She's a Minneapolis senator. That special election was also called with 1 day, basically, to file for to run in it. So for the month of January, the Senate will be in a tie.
Wow. That is so.
And you know the interesting
They're just
dynamic
gonna do
there.
nothing until.
I know.
Yeah, they're just gonna sit. Might
By
as
the
well start
way,
later.
By the way, who's the president of the Senate? Because you have to get a majority votes, right? Now in because it's a new legislature. Even though the senators are 4-year terms, it's still a new legislative session.
Yeah.
So they have to vote for a president again. And in 2023, two Republicans, Jim Abler and Jeremy Miller, went to the opposite side and voted for Bobby Joe Champion, a Minneapolis Democrat.
dumb.
So the question is, will they do that again here?
Probably.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Jim Abler
Abler-
left his own devices, probably would.
Yeah.
So in other words, they literally will have maybe no president. They might not meet in the Senate. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. Does that mean they don't meet?
No,
What
it
would
would
that
mean
mean?
Peggy Flanagan becomes the Senate president. So
Oh,
that needs to be
wow.
avoided. Hopefully,
Maybe.
Republicans are coming up with a couple of alternative plans. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Senate shakes out with it being 33-33. And just as we had raised these issues about the writ of election for the 40B race, that Walz was doing things illegitimately, we could make the same exact arguments as it relates to the SD 60 race, because that Senate district also had an even shorter writ of election, had the same time window for people, only 1 day to be able to enter the race. So the same exact issues were in play. The Senate race has a little bit more going on the Democrat side, but not a whole lot, because the writ of election was not posted 5 days in advance, as per required by 204D.22, which states that which basically states that the writ of election needs to be posted at the county auditor's office for 5 days, which obviously was not done because there wasn't even 5 days for it to be posted at the county auditor's office. So considering that there's all these problems with both the special election writ of elections that were filed by Walz, I think the Senate also needs to reject the election certification of the Senate District 60 special election results and force Walz to do another special election, and hopefully he'll actually do it according to the law this time.
You are 100% right. Yeah, if you look at 204D, and listen, all the attention went to the other race, but you're right. Subdivision 2 of 204D.22. Here, let me
And just
yeah, go
hit
back
that
to
tab on the right side.
Yep.
On the right side, Dawson.
Actually, no, yeah, the far right.
Yeah.
Go top right, because then
Top
you can
right,
just
where's
move
the
over.
little
Yeah,
arrow,
move over.
204D.22. So just
Yeah.
keep going until you hit 0.22. There we go.
Okay, now look at subdivision 2, and this is going to clearly say that immediately upon receipt of the writ, the Secretary of State shall send a certified copy of the writ by the United States mail and electronic mail, which, by the way, will take at least a day to get to Hennepin County, to the county auditor of each county in which the candidates to fill the vacancy are to be voted upon. So it's just Hennepin County in this case, right? The county.
Well, and 40B was Ramsey, so both cases.
I know, but
that's
that's true in that case. But I'm focused on 60.
Right, on 60.
The county auditor
only.
shall post a copy of the writ in the auditor's office at least 5 days before the close of the time for filing affidavits of candidacy for special elections. So they didn't follow the law on that one either.
Yeah.
Because they didn't even have 5 days.
Right.
And this would be business days, and that assumes the post office was delivering mail, which it wasn't going to on New Year's Eve anyhow.
Yeah.
So, my God, they don't follow any laws.
Well,
so
to make things, I guess, could we just very briefly look at an article I had written up here?
We 100% can, Jesse. And let me just finish this point real quick.
Okay.
So, why are they doing this, Bridget? This is so much fun to have you back.
Because you can just enlighten me.
Because they're just realizing they don't have any majority and they're losing all their power in the legislature.
Yeah.
So they're hurrying up to limit the damage the Republicans could do. Whatever that damage is, that's what they're trying to do. So they're skirting the law. Now, no surprise to anyone that followed Tim Walz during COVID, he doesn't give a shit about the laws. And we're going to get into how the Democrats now are obstructing a government proceeding. That's the name of the show. We're not even there yet. We're just catching you up. That's the Senate. Go ahead. Let's go to your article.
Dawson, just briefly pull up the 812 because and this article is not published yet on Facebook. I mean, on our website. So you guys are going to be getting a sneak peek preview into this piece here. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit. What we want to find is where it says Exhibit 3. So keep scrolling. We'll check out some pictures here. Keep scrolling. Brian Kern's happy with the new guy. That's where the Senate District DFL held their endorsing convention in Little Canada. There's the party of old white people. And all right, Exhibit 3. That's what I'm looking for. So since we're talking about SD 60, Senate Republicans could also leverage their current 33-33 split to reject the Senate special election winner's certificate. Senate Republicans will also be pleased with the news that a Democrat candidate for the Senate special election, Mohammed Jama, allegedly does not meet residency requirements, voted in 2024 from an old address, according to his campaign manager, Jacob Hooper.
November 2024,
right. And has a complaint filed against him by a resident of the district who is clearly connected with the Senate DFL caucus because they were able to get a hold of the following text messages between Jacob Hooper and the Senate DFL caucus, as seen in Exhibit 3 from the lawsuit. See below. So they texted him, "Hey, just checking in. To be clear, hope it is all good. But helpful if you can share the address. Our concern is what is happening in SD 40 in the House, and we want to just confirm that he's all good on that piece." The campaign manager says his address is blank, which is according to Find My Representative, and underneath on the map is in the district. Scroll down, they say thank you. And are you able to confirm how long he has lived there, and if he is registered to vote there, or if he is registered somewhere else, and if he voted in November 2024 election? They say, hey, can't talk on the phone, but can text. Just got the info. He's lived there for about 6 months. He is not registered to vote at that location. He did vote in 2024, but used an old address during this because he was in the process of moving, which is also against the law. So Republicans in Senate District 60 could decide to skip out on the GOP primary between Patriot Abigail Walters and a supposed Ron Paul supporter with he, him pronouns in his bio. They could instead, what Republicans could instead do is support the campaign of Mohammed Jama in the Democratic primary and hope that his victory would further stall the Democrats in the legislature. Considering that ballots are being printed or are already printed in this district because of the quick nature of this, thanks to Walz, there is nothing Democrats can do but hope Mohammed Jama does not win the election. So Republicans in SD 60 have two options on the table. They can vote in the Republican primary, or they could say, hey, let's give this Mohammed Jama a chance. So That's going to be interesting to see
know what
how
to
it all
do.
shakes out. And that article, in other ways, will be laying out the argument for House Republicans on the 40B case to say that they must reject that election certificate as well. So once that is published, you can be sure to send to your Republican representatives and make sure that you demand that they live up to these problems of election integrity. If they want to be the party of election integrity, you need to set the example by proving in the legislature that we are not going to allow crooked election results. The only way to do that is by rejecting 54A, 40B, and Senate District 60.
Okay. Let's.
That's a lot.
God, this is so crazy. All right. So now we get into where we're at today. You caught up on this? The House right now, 67-66 Republicans. Senate tied. Oh, I forgot one other really big. By the way, I heard a rumor someone else is possibly on their deathbed in the Senate, Democrat. Have you heard this rumor? I'll talk about it on the post show because, by the way, if you want to be part of our post show where you get the inside information,
I guess I'd have a couple
rumors,
guesses.
rumor, whatever. You can go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on support us, $8 a month or a month off if you do annual subscription of $88. And that's where you get the insider information. We do our post show after most every show. We do a post show. Today we'll definitely do one. This is gonna be interesting stuff.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, really quick, says libertarians needed to sue over the Senate race. Is that just because they weren't? Because like the
Because the same thing. It's like over what he just read, subdivision 2 and
204D.22.
Yeah, because just imagine alone, even if you had ballot access, just trying to get on an election, let alone you don't have ballot access and you have to get signatures. Like
yeah.
You need
Walz knows he's
500
doing
eligible signatures, which really means that you need to collect, upwards of like 600-700 in order to make sure that you get all the signatures you actually need.
Yeah,
But does every candidate have to have that?
Yeah,
everyone
From
that's
every
not
party?
a major party. And there's
Right.
only two major
Oh,
parties
only if you're not a
because
major
the
so if you're
Democrats,
not a Republican or
Democrats and David Hand changed that law.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, by the way,
And they
this
screwed over the Legal Marijuana Now party so that they're no longer a major party either.
But by the way, just so you know, they are the party of the democracy.
Yeah.
All right, so I forgot this little wrinkle here, Bridget. The burglar senator is also got a trial starting on January 27th, and it's a trial, jury trial, and they're going forward with it's first degree felony
gosh.
burglary, and she looks damn guilty.
Wow.
Called as witnesses as her stepmother, who's
What
going
happens
to
if
most
she-
likely testify that she broke into her house and was at the foot of her bed in the middle of the night when she called 911. We've seen the transcripts of 911. That's what happened. We imagine her stepmother is going to say that in court. It looks pretty damning for Nicole Mitchell. So we also believe the Democrats are going to have to resign their seat
yeah.
in Woodbury, which is not such a locked Democrat seat. Still leans Democrat, but that's possibly to be won over by Republicans. Needless to say, that special election won't happen immediately. We're looking at placement in March. Although, yeah, Tim Walz doesn't seem to follow the laws right now.
Right.
So who knows? Okay, we're caught up now.
And especially, Tim Walz should learn the lesson, especially after the 2024 election. It was such a slap in the face to him, and it proved that him and Kamala were so out of touch because for the first time in forever for Republicans to win the popular vote and win in such a landslide that they did, that should be a sign to Tim Walz that, hey, maybe I'm not where the rest of the people are. Maybe I'm a little bit off, and I need to make sure that I'm figuring out what the people want. And you would think that, this should be a lesson to him to say that I need to do things correctly, and if I try to skirt the lines, then people are going to notice. And because him being a liar was a major contributing factor to him and Kamala losing as badly as they did. So you would think that after a lesson like the 2024 election, he would say, we need to follow the law. I'm going to make sure I do things properly. And especially with a split legislature initially, you'd think that'd be a sign to him that I need to work with these Republicans and I need to do something to bridge this gap. But instead, he's still going all in, trying to make sure to manipulate the law to help the Democrats.
Well, that's because weak men are dangerous.
Yeah.
They're very dangerous. And he's a weak man, and therefore he's lashing out. That's all he knows to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's kind of a patsy for the left-wing establishment. Okay, so now we've got the legislature convening a week from today, January 14th. And yesterday, because that was pretty much the first week of business, in Minnesota or in the United States, was yesterday, January 6th, right? Remember that day? It seems to be an important day to some people. So January 6th, the Democrats hold a press conference where they announce they are going to obstruct a government proceeding. They are planning on not showing up on day one of the legislative session so that there's not a quorum, and therefore the Minnesota legislature not only can't do business, they can't even convene for the first time, meaning they won't take an oath of office, meaning there's not a legislature.
So how long are they going to do that for?
Good question, Bridget. This has never happened before.
Oh my God.
Are you guys paying
a lot of people
attention?
in the comments are like, oh, this is good.
Go ahead.
No government is better. So.
Right, I agree with that statement.
Yeah, a lot of people in the comments saying that. Razzle says, do nothing, better than continued damages and losses of our liberties. And then Hate Minnesota, similar, says, correct, if they are doing nothing, at least they aren't destroying anything. And then the candidate agrees. So maybe just be entertaining and we'll have no destroying of government this year.
Bridget, for sure it's going to be entertaining. I'm telling you, I don't like watching these press conferences. They're lame. I was glued to it. I've watched it multiple times. Let's go first to the Democrats by the woke Melissa Hortman, who wears her pride scarf. Let's go to the A2. What?
That's not really a pride scarf.
It's not. No, I know. I kind of attribute to it. It was, it's tasty. Maybe that was a low blow. I shouldn't have done that.
But the thing behind it looks like a pride.
Well, that definitely is. That's Brian Curran. That's the now
Drunk
I assume.
Oh, that's the.
What's that?
Drunk driver.
Yeah, I assume she was actually sober at this moment, but it's hard to tell. Let's just start from the beginning here. Are we at the beginning? Yeah, let's go ahead and play this.
Okay, well, winter break is over. Welcome back to the Capitol in 2025. The Minnesota House DFL is here just to be absolutely clear that we will do what it takes to preserve the will of the voters in the Minnesota House of Representatives. In this last election, Minnesotans voted for equal numbers of Democratic and Republican state representatives. Honoring the will of the voters means governing together under power sharing. Minnesotans want Republicans and Democrats to honor the will of the voters. And we would like to get to work right away on a bipartisan basis to tackle the challenges that Minnesotans elected us to address. We have no interest in spending January locked into a partisan gridlock with House Republicans in warfare over what constitutes a majority when that's pretty clear in Minnesota law.
It's not.
We don't intend to let the Republicans pretend, though, that 67 members is a majority. It is not.
It is.
What the Republicans are engaged in is an
stop
illegitimate
right there.
power.
By the way, Bridget, what they're arguing here is the House has 134 members, and so 68 is a majority. The problem with her argument here, and this will obviously go in front of a judge, is there aren't 134 members.
Yeah.
There's 133. Actually, later I'm going to show you how they're arguing there's 0 members right now.
Oh my
which
gosh,
is
'cause no
really
one's sworn in.
fascinating. Yeah, they literally said there is not a legislature. Okay, now watch this. If there is a vacancy, that is not a member. That's a vacancy. So that means there's one less than 134. There's 133
Yeah.
members. So a majority of 133 is 67. This is what the
That would seem
argument's going to be.
obvious.
They're going to argue, no, it's 134. Why? But it goes back to the old question. Why is there 134 or 133? Because you had a person cheat. He was not qualified to run. He won the election, but it's not going to be certified. The challenge was accepted, the challenge was accepted by a judge because you cheated. You didn't follow the law. And by the way, is he going to end up in jail for lying on a government document? Isn't that a felony act?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get in any trouble. But yeah, I mean, obviously Niska has been leading this fight, and Harry Niska has been doing a great job bringing up this, proposing this rule fight because it's so important. And if you can't get the quorum right, then you can't get anything done properly in the House. And so it was nice to see that Harry Niska was actually taking up that fight because that was something that we had been talking about, Action for Liberty had been talking about, and a lot of these House Republicans are just dragging their feet. Action for Liberty has been leading on all of these top issues, and especially on the legislative front. And so it's nice to see that these Republicans are eventually coming around to it. They need to follow through. If they don't follow through, it's all for nothing. So we need to hold these people's feet to the fire. Oh, yeah.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, $5 Rumble Rant says, Walter Hudson meltdown, gorgeous. This could be a week-long episode.
Yeah.
What a turncoat, baby. And then he lost his man card. He's a petulant child. I'm actually really curious to hear about this part.
Yeah,
Sounds
I don't really want to spend
But-
too much time on Walter because I think Walter's showing his irrelevancy in the grand scheme of politics. I mean,
Okay.
Walter, do you
It's
not
desperation.
Walter,
yeah.
do you really not see what's going on here? Do you not really see the play? You're not seeing it? Okay, so then it shows that he doesn't understand the dynamics at the Capitol, and it must be personal. But anyhow, we'll do it because I know Jesse wants to talk about it. Let's go back to the Democrats here. This is them arguing how they're not going to show up to the first day of the legislative session.
Power grab, and we're not going to stand by and just let them do it. Democrats are prepared to use all of the parliamentary tactics available to us in the absence of a power sharing agreement on the first day of session.
Oh, pause it real
The
quick.
Minnesota
So, Bridget,
Constitution, Article
when there was 67 to 67, the Republicans and Democrats had to sort out, well, how does this even work?
Yeah.
There's not going to be a speaker. How does that, it's very unprecedented. It only happened in 1979 that we could tell. So they're going to they had they had committees. Some were led by Democrats, some were led by Republicans.
Oh,
so they
yeah,
were
that's interesting because I forget. They get to lead all the... Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
So they had to sort that kind of stuff out. Well, because of the Democrats, they lost a seat. They lost a member or won't have a member, and it's their fault. You have to remember, it's their fault. And so in that case, why would the Republicans give them a majority, especially when the Republicans just got railroaded by them at the end of last year's session? So continue on.
Article 4, Section 13 states, a majority of each house constitutes a quorum to transact business. And Minnesota law at Minnesota Statutes 2.021 provides that the Minnesota House is comprised of 134 members. A quorum is 68 members. A majority is 68 members. Neither caucus has a majority. We have to work together to get things done. And we would like to do that starting on the first day.
Oh, whatever.
So
With that, I'll turn it over to Floor Leader Jamie Long.
Okay, now let's stop it there, and that's Jamie Long. I know you hear Jamie Long's name and you think it's a chick, but it's really a dude. So that's Jamie Long, the floor leader, not majority leader anymore, floor leader. Harry Niska is the majority leader.
Yeah.
Because guess what? The Republicans have a majority. There's not 134 members. There's 133 members. And there's 133 members because your assholes decided we're not going to follow the law. All right. Yeah, you're pretty much caught up at this point. So she doubles down. She was kind of speaking, I think, somewhat vague. So the media actually asked, and we're going to go to the A3, Dawson. The media's actually asking, wait a second, you guys aren't going to show up? You're not going to have you're going to stop a quorum because a quorum is a majority, right? So you're going to stop a quorum? Well, where are you going to go? Are you going to hide on the rotunda? They literally asked this question, and this is Melissa Hortman's response to it.
Questions?
What does that mean that when you're talking about quorum, we all just stay out in the rotunda on the first day and make sure there's not 68 electeds in that room at any given time?
Well, the rotunda wouldn't be a very good place to be. Abraham Lincoln tried that when he was a senator in the state of Illinois. He went to the state house to tell the other party that he was not going to provide quorum, and they locked the doors. And then he tried to climb out a window, and they said, "Too bad, we counted you already." So I don't think that you would be seeing us in the Capitol building.
So are you going to be here?
We'll be meeting with constituents in our districts. We'll be meeting with mayors, police chiefs, fire chiefs, working with staff, drafting bills. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, right? When you think about what's going on right now, we're in negotiations with Republicans.
Okay,
Very
so
similar
now
to
the Republicans need to hold the line. This is the most bullshit thing I've ever heard, okay? Now, I forgot this part. So it's probably on my Twitter page, Dawson. The Democrats are actually talking about not showing up but still receiving pay. Yes, it is. Give me 1 second, Dawson. I am going to put it down in the D2. Okay. By the way, if they're not going to be at the Capitol, someone better be watching Wolgamott. I want to make sure that guy doesn't go chug a bottle of vodka.
And one funny thing I found from what Hortman said there, she's using the Abraham Lincoln example, and I noticed how she says the other party.
That's right. I wonder
why she says the other party rather than saying The Democrats locked him in the Capitol building. I wonder why she
That
said
is
the
really
other party
convenient,
instead
yeah.
of saying the Democrats were the ones who did that.
Yeah, you know, it was so, and he was the party that was against slavery. So what does that
Yeah,
mean?
individual
the other
rights,
party, the one that was
anti-slavery.
for slavery. Okay, got it. Just want to check. There's your history lesson with
Tucker
Jesse
has a
Smith.
funny-
All right, go to the D2. This is the Democrats. I forgot to put this on there. They're actually explaining they'll still receive pay during this period of time.
Do you have salaries during this time as well, because you'll be meeting with constituents?
I anticipate that we will.
Have you been?
That's yeah, they're not going to go to work. They actually reference like union strikes, which, by the way, last I checked, unions when they picket, they don't get paid because they're basically they're a strike against the company or whatever they're striking against. They're going to take your money, your tax money.
Yeah, we should not have to file taxes. We should be like, nope.
No, I'll do you one even crazier than that, because that's a great point. If that, why are we paying our taxes when they're not even showing up to work? We got to go to work to pay taxes, so you guys don't go to work to pay taxes. By the way, one would say they're obstructing a government proceeding. The same thing they say the Republicans did on January 6th. Go back to my Twitter account, because I think I had a good meme here, right? Essentially, scroll down right there. Citizens trying to stop government, because this is what they said, is the citizens were trying, and quite frankly, some of them were obviously doing that at the Capitol. Not the BS of Donald Trump, but they were trying to stop a government proceeding from happening. But it's okay when the Democrats in Minnesota do it. That's all right. We just can't have citizens doing it. It's so ridiculous. The double standards are all over the place. Now, here's the interesting thing, Bridget. Dawson, we're going to pull up the A4. They're addressing the special election, which created the vacancy. And someone in the media just asked the question, why didn't the governor call for a special election? Why didn't he call a special session and then called for a special election from the vacancy in 40B right now with the current legislative makeup? Now, before watching this, and I think most people would believe this, the term of a legislator is from the time you swear in and give the oath of office to the time someone fills that seat by swearing in and gives the oath of office. Does that sound reasonable? Does that sound like the right way to go?
I mean, yeah.
Right? Because otherwise, when else would the handoff be?
Yeah, anyways, they're just like legislature elect or whatever they are. Like
Correct.
Senate elector, right?
The Democrats here are going to argue there is no legislators right now in the Minnesota House. This is the A4, Dawson. Play this. This might be crazier when we talk about taxes. Go ahead.
What about a special session? Is there any talk about calling a special session so that the legislature is convened and then the 22-day clock could start?
The time for a special session has expired. The prior terms are over. As of, I believe it was either midnight last night or noon today, the new terms have started. So the Representative Gene Pawlowski, for example, is no longer a currently serving representative. So through yesterday, a special session could be called, but at this point in time, it would not be appropriate.
Okay, so what
the Republicans
the
talk about
Democrats
repeal-
are arguing here right now is there is no current legislature.
Where did
least
she
not
get
in
the
the
date
House.
of yesterday?
We don't know. We kind of get a reference in a state government finance bill that we could allude to the date. No, even that was that was Monday, the first Monday of 2025. But just think about this. What she is arguing is, I mean, she said the new terms begin, but how do the new terms begin? No one's taken the oath of office. They have their election has not been certified, or what do we call it, approved by the legislature. So what is she talking about? So in other words, and she's also saying the governor can't call a special session right now, right? So in other words, why are we paying taxes? I thought this country was
for
founded
real.
on taxation with representation. Do we have representation in Minnesota? I think the Democrat former speaker is arguing we are being taxed without representation right now in Minnesota.
That's so crazy.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Okay, now they get into the specifics of the Tabke case, which is another big hanging fruit out there, because guess what? Action for Liberty did a great job, and they said, hey, you know what needs to happen? Republicans need to do two things before they elect Lisa Demuth as speaker, right? Because
Is that who they're thinking?
Well, yeah, that's the speaker designate,
Oh,
meaning
that is-
that this is
oh,
the
I didn't
person
know that.
assuming that
Okay.
assume has the votes. Assume she has the votes. Don't make the assumption. In fact, in the press conference of Republicans, she's a little too bold on that call, okay? Now, personally, I want her to be speaker as long as she embraces the liberty agenda. Here's the deal. Democrats grew government by like 40%. That needs to shrink. You know that $18 billion they wasted in a surplus that could, or sorry, $20 billion that could have come back to us? Well, you know what? The Republicans can still give that back to us as tax cuts. They just have to go back to the spending before what the Democrats did. So they should shrink spending by 40% because the Democrats just grew it by that, or pre-COVID levels, we should say, or right around COVID levels. So that's what the Republicans should come out of the gate saying. So Action for Liberty calls for that. Number two, Action for Liberty says election integrity matters. Do not certify Brad Tapke. Do not let this guy take office. 20 voters have been disenfranchised in that election. If Tapke won by a margin of 24 votes, it would be ridiculous for him to not allow Brad Tapke to take office. But Brad Tapke won by a margin under the amount of disenfranchised voters. That is not a fair election. Now, a special election will be called, and Brad Tapke has every chance of winning that election. And as long as it's fair and all the votes have been counted, then that's just the will of the people. But right now, the will of the people is not there. 20 people's will was not counted for. And it's because somebody in Shakopee, some election official, decided the trash can was the best place for those votes. So they have been disenfranchised, and it's enough to cover the margin of victory there. So that's just a simple election integrity issue. Brad Tapke, you're a piece of shit clown, but I'll give you a little bit of sympathy. I'm sorry. Maybe you would have won that election. I don't know. No one will ever know. Okay? Sucks for you too. But the thing is, it wasn't a fair election because 20 people have been disenfranchised. Now, that's as much sympathy as I'm going to give that dumbass because he's really a piece of shit. But quite frankly, maybe he would have won, and it was because of that election official throwing out those ballots that he's not certified. By the way, I would also say there's a high good chance that the election official knew what the hell they were doing and they threw those out on purpose, right? You see what I'm saying? That's why you have to have a new election. It's ridiculous that county commissioners certified that damn election in the first place. Okay, so then we go to the Democrats. This is in the A5, talking about the Tapke case not being settled. And you actually get pushback from Tom Hauser because they're arguing this is figured out. The court case is really figured out. So Jamie Long, and by the way, Jamie Long is a male, just so you know, because it's confusing in the Democrat caucus. They all have a gazillion pronouns, and you think by the name it's not. So Jamie Long is arguing that in the court proceedings in 54A, the 20 disenfranchised voters have been identified, and at least 6 testified that they did vote for Brad Tapke, thus accounting for the margin of victory. So here we go. This is actually someone in the press pool pushing back at these guys. Good job, Tom Hauser.
The judge hasn't ruled in that case yet, and also there was testimony that there's no 100% certainty those were the voters.
The standard in a legal case is preponderance of the evidence, and in a civil case. In a criminal case, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Both of those thresholds were met. 100% certainty is not what's required, but the election official testified that she had no doubt that those were the 20 voters, and that's exactly what happened, and that they heard from those voters.
Well, she said she had some doubt. She couldn't say 100%, so that is some doubt.
That's not the standard.
Republicans have raised the
That's a response. Oh shit, I got caught in a lie. Yeah, you got caught in a lie. Because guess what? I mean, you could look at that case and you go, it seems like possibly Tapke won. But by golly, in something so important, especially in the stakes this legislative session, we should know. And you got to feel bad for 20. I would be freaking
Wait, so they're
pissed if
saying
my
that they
vote was
know the
thrown
20
out.
people and they've talked to them?
Because
What is she saying
yeah.
exactly?
So what they did is they found a span of dates. Okay, that these because these were this was before election night. Yeah, you don't know this part, do you?
Oh, okay.
So they were absentee ballots, and it was this part where people would go and now I've already forgotten this thing. It was like the day before people would vote, and they would put it in the machine. So what they did is they went and then they would hand somebody the envelope, and then that person would take the envelope, they'd pull it out, and then they'd put it in the machine. and then after that date, then everyone goes there, and then they actually as if they're going to a polling place early. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, I mean, God, we've covered this for the last month and a half. It's just insane the dynamics of this. I mean, it seems like forever ago that the Scott County attorney admitted that the ballots were thrown in the trash and that they're not recoverable. Like, because they actually traced where the trash went to. Like, I think it was Burnsville, like a landfill in Burnsville. Okay, so both Lisa Demuth, we'll pivot here now to, and by the way, good job on Tom Hauser.
One quick thing, the Democrats are basically saying that they don't care about the secret ballot. You know, the secret ballot is one of the key elements of voting, because if a voter cannot be assured that their vote is secret, that they have the opportunity to vote according to their conscience and not be persuaded by or forced to testify according to their vote, or have to justify it by any means to the government, because of course we're all free to vote for whoever we want. So the fact that the Democrats are trying to expose these people too is also a problem. The fact that they no longer have a secret ballot, just as every other voter was promised and given.
Great point, Jesse. Read Carol's, because it's a great segue.
She said, don't be surprised when the Republicans don't fight back. Most of them were selected, controlled opposition.
Yeah, read her more recent one, though. This is good.
She goes on to say, Republicans should fight Democrats like how they do towards patriots.
Isn't that right? Because,
right?
they are vicious against patriots, and she knows because she's in Otter Tail County. She watched the Republican establishment just steamroll over the grassroots patriots. Well, why don't you fight like that against the Democrats? Now, I think they are. Let's just skip over the 87. That's Demuth addressing Tab. I'm just going to say this. Lisa Demuth, I hope you do become speaker, but you got to address the liberty agenda. So you can't place tab key, and you got to shrink government spending.
Was she speaker?
Then I hope you're a successful speaker, okay?
Right, and according to the Action for Liberty writing that Broadcorp decided to blast out there, where I had written that I had given a new nickname to Lisa Demuth, calling her Lisa Kamala Demuth, because at the time she was acting as an empty suit front woman, while giving tens of thousands of dollars to rhinos who were unendorsed, while the endorsed candidates in those local areas were getting screwed over by the HRCC. So I was saying how she was basically no different than Kurt Dowd, because she was doing the exact same thing. Nothing had changed, even though she had promised all these people that things were going to be different, that she was going to abide by the endorsement. That wasn't the case. So Lisa Demuth, she needs to, it's on her to remove that Kamala nickname for herself. If she wants to prove herself to be a competent, strong fighter on the floor, because, I'm just from what I've seen on the floor, I've watched a lot of the House floor sessions.
Yes, you have.
I don't see a competent strategist in Lisa Demuth. I see a competent strategist in Niska, so that's why I'm happy to see Niska as the majority leader here, and I hope that he actually ends up taking the reins and really controls this thing, because but I could be wrong. Hopefully I am wrong about Lisa Demuth. Hopefully she is a fighter, and hopefully she is going to push this liberty agenda all the way through.
Yes, and let's talk about Niska, because he addresses tab key, and he's sharp, okay? And he actually is a majority leader, right? Like, this is one that's decided by the caucus.
I guess we'd call him still majority leader designate.
No, because he's a majority leader. His caucus determined
I guess that's true, right? He doesn't need to be elected by the body. He is the majority leader.
Yes, exactly. But Demuth is the speaker designate. She's not the speaker yet, and she seems, and I'll play this, seems overly confident she's going to be the speaker. We'll embrace the liberty agenda, and you could be speaker, right?
Razzle-dazzles earlier said Lisa said in a press conference that she has all the necessary votes.
Right.
Yeah, well, she doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay. She doesn't. She only needs one. She only needs one Republican to not vote for her.
She doesn't until it happens.
And by the way, that doesn't mean the Democrats win. And by the way, of course they don't win, because they're not even going to show up, apparently. But even if they showed up, you have to have a majority, right? And at this point, the majority is 67. So if one Republican decides not to vote for her, then she can't be the Speaker of the House until that Republican gets on board. It's the same as the U.S. Speakership, okay? And I happen to know that there are some Republicans in the Minnesota House that think the same way I think, and the same way that the people at Action for Liberty think, that she needs to embrace the liberty agenda. And until she does that, she doesn't have the votes. So she's lying, okay? Now, anyhow, or being deceived by somebody. Maybe it's Jim Nash. He's the new whip, the majority whip. Maybe he's doing it. Maybe I'd argue he's the one that put her in office in the first place. All right, so anyhow, Harry Niska, this is him addressing the tab key. This is the A8. Alpha 8 committee. This is Harry Niska from, is he your state rep?
I think so.
Yeah, he is your state rep.
Yeah, he is.
Go ahead.
Back to the tab key question, please. So even if the court upholds that election, the judge upholds that election, you don't intend to seat him, it sounds like, because you don't
So we're still waiting for the judge's ruling. Obviously, the judge is going to issue some sort of findings of fact, we expect. Brad Tabke's lawyers said that that's just a recommendation to the legislature. And the Minnesota Constitution is very clear that each house is the ultimate authority for the returns of its members. So if Aaron Paul, his campaign brings a contest to the Minnesota House, it is our constitutional obligation to judge that, and we would intend to do that.
And it sounds like you expect that he will do that, so you do not expect to be seeing Tabke, it sounds like.
That's a process that we would take seriously in the House.
Well, it sounds
Under
like
what
you-
situation would you not see
There you
Tabke?
go.
Yep.
There's a Republican with a spine, and pretty bright too. Understands the process. They also asked him that because the Republicans talk about, well, if the Democrats are going to show up, perhaps we go after them with a recall, because there's recall elections. We know this very well because we were behind the petition to the Supreme Court to recall Governor Walz when he usurped the power of the legislature and executed laws by emergency powers.
And not all people know how Niska actually ended up in that position to where he can be the majority leader, because people don't know that in the Republican caucus meeting room, the House Republicans initially were just going to have Demuth appoint her selected hand-picked puppet to serve as the majority leader. It wasn't until the Republicans put up a fight and said, no, we want to have an election on this. We want to be able to choose our own member. Demuth was backing Paul Torkelson, and the Republicans...
It was like a dinosaur.
Right.
He's been there forever.
He's got a 52% or a 54% overall scorecard rating with Action for Liberty. Big-time rhino. He's no good. And the Republicans instead selected Harry Niska, which obviously is proving to be a benefit to the Republicans right now, because there's actually someone who is willing to fight for election integrity, and he has to watch his words there carefully and not say an outward yes.
Yeah, because you don't know the votes yet.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
A
but
Republican could vote against it. So,
right,
yeah,
but
he's
he's right that let's see what the court says, and then we'll go from there. And I think that regardless of what the court says, the Republicans have every opportunity and every right to disqualify 54A, 40B, and SD 60.
There you go. All right. So then I guess let's do the A9. So Mort, and this is going to get into the Walter Hudson meltdown. Mort, as President of Action for Liberty, what a great president he is. Much better than that predecessor. So he calls for Republicans, essentially, but I guess Democrats too, not to vote for Lisa Demuth unless she does two things: goes back to COVID levels. I think it's COVID level.
Pre-COVID levels.
Pre-COVID level
Yep.
budget, which is a good starting point, right?
Yeah.
If you go around saying those Democrats keep growing government, how about you show that we're against that and we want to go back to pre-COVID? Oh God, what a tragedy if we go back to $50 billion.
Yeah.
We can't function in a government and $50 billion. By the way, you know what that means? You have more money in your pocketbook because you get taxes back. Isn't that a great thing? The taxes that were confiscated by Tim Walz and the Democrats. They owed you $8,000 and they spent it on more government. My God, Republicans, that's your starting point. Actually, your starting point should be, how about government gets shrunk in half? How about that?
Yeah.
But at least go back to the level so you can give that $20 billion surplus back.
Right. The ask that Mortensen is asking for here from these legislators to demand something for their votes. I mean, it's
Right.
unbelievable that anyone would have an issue with that, because, like you're saying, this should be starting ground discussion for Republicans immediately once they get control of the legislature. So basically, any Republican representative who has an issue with it, they're exposing themselves as a rhino, because a Republican representative who is truly a conservative would look at what Eric Mortensen is saying and saying, I'm completely on board. Why would I be opposed to any of that? That's exactly why we got elected. So Lisa Demuth, of course, needs to come to those considerations as well and say that if the Republicans have control, they are actually going to cut spending and they're actually going to focus on election integrity. I think those are simple asks that I don't know why Lisa Demuth would be dragging her feet on.
Dawson, pull up the D2 real quick. Great teaching point here, especially for the Republican reps that are watching this, because I know a lot of these guys watch the show. Thank you very much. By the way, if you're looking for home, give Warren Wessel a call at 612-409-7453. That's Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. This is Ralph Norman and Keith Self. This goes back to Friday, and we'll talk about this hopefully a little bit at the end of the show. But they actually voted for somebody else as speaker. Norman voted for Jordan, and Keith Self voted for
Donalds.
Brian Donalds. And we all know Massey was the initial guy that said he wasn't going to vote, although he voted for Emmer, which
Globalist
is so dumb.
Rhino Tom Emmer.
Massey
What a
voted for
joke.
It was so dumb. It just showed he wasn't serious. But Massey
wow.
was a no vote on Mike Johnson, and Mike Johnson could not bleed more than one Republican. And in this case, he bled 3. So this is showing.
And Chip Roy initially didn't answer either.
Yeah. By the way, I probably posted the wrong one. Did I not take a screenshot? I must not take a screenshot. I had a screenshot somewhere of. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna post this in the D2 Dawson. This is the one I should have posted. Give me 1 second. So I just replaced this D2. This is Mike Johnson taking Ralph Norman and Keith Self back outside of the chambers. Now, Mike Johnson wins the speaker on the first vote, but it's only because they emerged from behind closed doors and changed their vote. Now, we know politics very well. Clearly, Walter doesn't. We know politics very well. One of two things happened. They were either threatened or they were bought off. I'm going to assume at this point in the game in politics, they were bought off.
Well,
And it doesn't always mean a bad thing, by the way.
I think Norman was just taken out of the House, too. I think he lost his Republican primary. So it'd be a little bit tougher to figure out what he was actually negotiating for and what to give someone
what do
on
you
the
mean
way
he lost
out.
his primary? No, he's not on his way out. This is a new legislature.
Ralph Norman.
No, that's the new.
Oh, did he? Okay, maybe I'm confusing him with another representative.
Well, there are other ones. Maybe you're thinking of what's his name for Bob Good, probably.
Probably.
Yeah, Bob Good's not a legislator anymore. Or
I see.
congressman.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ralph. No, so this. Yeah, this is the first day for a lot of people. So in other words, I don't mean to sound like bad, like bought off. They might have got something good, like the speaker will have 12 separate budget bills, right? So this is what they're doing, is they're making sure if they vote for this rhino Mike Johnson, like, can we just admit Mike Johnson's a failure as a speaker? Can we admit that? Like, sorry,
He's been a letdown.
Trump, he's a huge letdown. Like, look at that omnibus bill that he tried passing with Democrats that funded Ukraine. Guy is not America first. But if you're going to if the momentum's going that way, you better get something for it. So the same thing with Lisa Demuth is shrink spending, and number 2, don't see Brad Tabke. Let's care about election integrity. You're the party election integrity, right?
Well, and
so
what's so crazy is these Republicans that are fighting this, that are going against this, that are fighting back and saying, basically what they're saying is Lisa Demuth doesn't have to do anything to earn their vote.
Right.
They will vote for Lisa Demuth no matter what. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's an unbelievable thing, and it shows that these people are weak. And if you're not willing to demand anything, then why did you get elected in the first place? Because people sent these Republicans in there to fight. And if they're not willing to fight, and if they're not willing to hold their leaders accountable, then they're no better than the Democrats.
Yeah, step aside, resign your seat, and create a vacancy so that the Democrats are tied again with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just takes one Democrat to resign, or one Republican to resign, and now it's a tie again. Oh, geez. All right, go to the A9. This is Demuth clearly responding to the pressure from Eric Mortensen and Action for Liberty.
Are you taking it for granted you'll have 67 votes on everything? There's been seen some words on Twitter that have been critical, insulting of you, Madam Speaker Designate. And I wonder if it's clear that you've got 67 strong votes in your caucus.
I know House Republicans have completely agreed that I have 67 votes for Speaker. We are completely unified on that. I have no doubt in my mind.
Very confident in that.
We have still not completely developed that, the rest of the agenda. We obviously have the priorities that you'll see here, and we'll move through the committee process as we bring those forward. Okay, let's stop it there.
Yeah, trust me, your confidence is a facade right there, okay? Now, and you're right on the money. Republicans need to demand. I mean, it shouldn't just be the handful that I know of. It should be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention this, Bridget. The Democrats have been arguing now for weeks, or since the 40B was decided, that they don't even have a majority in the sense where they could pass legislation. They had agreed that she could become speaker temporarily, and it doesn't sound like she'll give up the speakership once the Democrats have a tie. But they were arguing for a while that they could have a governing majority, but they can't pass bills because they need 68. I mean, they just keep moving the target. Well, of course they keep moving it because, Action for Liberty smartly is putting the peg over here, okay? I don't think Walter understands politics. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, so what's this A11? You just wrote Jamie
Dawson,
Long.
let's go ahead and quick pull up the A11. We can see what Jamie Long is saying. No audio to this one. This is just a tweet that he said. He said, Minnesotans voted for a tied House, but the GOP is trying to grab power to steal an election by kicking out Representative Brad Tabke. Knowing we will have equal numbers, why not share power? Simple. Their far-right base and Action for Liberty won't let them. Okay, so obviously the Democrats are in panic mode because they see that Action for Liberty is gaining traction, that we're moving the ball forward on the Liberty agenda, and that we're actually getting some certain things out of these representatives. And it's because the Republicans have a little bit of power here with the House majority, and it just shows that Jamie Long and these other Democrats, they want to use Action for Liberty as a, I guess, kind of a meat shield to attack with, and that's perfectly fine by us because we see that we're making an impact, and Jamie Long is... he also makes the case that, Minnesotans voted for a tied legislature. No, they didn't. There wasn't a single person who went and voted and said, I am voting with the intent to make the legislature a perfect 67-67 tie. There wasn't a single person who did that. That was the results of the initial election results. That's what came of that. It wasn't that people voted for that. It was that was the result of what people had voted for. But then we found out the Democrats are a bunch of liars and frauds and cheats who will make up where they live and not actually represent things truthfully. Dawson,
if you want to talk about voters, how about the people that were deceived in House District 40B?
Right,
with that person that wasn't eligible to run. How about that? Let's talk about that guy, those people.
Yep, and so let's go ahead and pull up the A13, Dawson, and we will just very briefly go over this. Also, sneak peek preview, something that is not on the Action for Liberty website quite yet. But House GOP legislators are following the lead of Action for Liberty on 54A, and they must follow through. So go ahead and scroll down a little bit. As I talked about with Jamie Long, these Democrats are getting very, very nervous about what's going on. So Brad Tabke has emailed people demanding money because he knows that Action for Liberty is after him, and he even quoted part of my article within that email. Very nice of him
Jesse,
to do so.
Hold on. Oh, man. You didn't make the go up a little bit. You didn't cover the recipient of that email well enough. I can see and tell who it is. You should have made it 2 times wider than you already did.
Yeah, right? No, I made
By
sure
the way, I know who this came from.
I made sure things were covered. But so that's just interesting, and it goes to show that these Democrats are obviously very afraid of what's going on, because we were ahead of the game, and it appears House Republicans have caught on, as we have just shown with some of those examples during the press conference. And now that Republicans appear to have wised up to the idea that you have to fight for your base once you're elected, Democrats are threatening that they won't show up. Democrats are proving themselves to be liars and sore losers who cannot accept the fact that they are in the minority, especially Melissa Hortman. As explained in our previous reporting, Majority Leader Harry Niska is correct to point out that a quorum is 67 votes within a 133-member legislature. If they refuse to show up and do their jobs, it will make it a lot easier for Republicans to pass legislation. Action for Liberty would demand and expect a floor vote and passage of our Never Again bill in that situation. And even if the Democrats decide to show up, I'm expecting to see the Never Again bill dealt with very, very quickly. Let's see. So Action for Liberty has caused major attention in Minnesota thanks to grassroots conservatives who are fed up with the uniparty establishment swamp that grows government and takes away our freedom and hard-earned dollars. Rhino Representative Walter Hudson, who was once the lead sponsor of our Never Again bill, has completely turned his back on the grassroots by attacking and name-calling patriots like you, simply for supporting freedom fighters like Action for Liberty. While he wastes his days away by being chronically online and engaging in meaningless spats on Twitter with the grassroots, we have caused a massive impact across our state. Walter Hudson is likely upset that Action for Liberty torpedoed his boss, Rhino David Hand's re-election effort, which caused Walter to lose his $40,000 per year salary, as that's been taken off of the MNGOP payroll. He has begun the tried and failed effort of smearing A4L simply for exposing his true self to conservatives. Hudson has used his political capital to support the censorship of globalist Rhino Tom Emmer's only opponent at the CD6 endorsing convention, and earlier used his political capital to make certain AI memes illegal with punishment including up to a $10,000 fine or 5 years in prison. So he was focused on making AI memes illegal instead of forcing a floor vote on the Never Again bill. It is amazing that it only took 2 years for Walter to completely turn his back on the grassroots movement that he purports to represent. Walter is clearly jealous of the success that Action for Liberty is seeing while his stock value is diminishing, and he is joining forces with the establishment completely because he has no home with patriots who see through his tired shtick. He is making more enemies by the day, while previously he had made calls for unity and seeking to act as a peacemaker between the establishment and the grassroots. However,
I thought the establishment didn't exist.
Exactly. However, it was all an act, and he is now revealing his true character. He was particularly upset that we demanded Republican legislators get something out of their votes in exchange for Lisa Demuth for Speaker, and that being cut spending to pre-COVID levels. See the triggered baby misrepresent A4L President Eric Mortensen below. So pull up the article again. Let's
just
pull
out
up
of curiosity, so does he oppose what Mort's calling for? Because Mort's is calling for two real...
That'd be crazy if he openly opposes that.
Yeah, Walter.
Check it out.
Well, I'm curious, Walter. Why don't you post online?
How about
Because you spend all day on Twitter. Why don't you post... Do you agree with going back to pre-COVID levels on the budget? And do you agree with not placing Brad Dabke?
Go
Why
up,
don't you answer
Dawson.
that?
There we go. That's the one we're looking for. Action for Liberty, he says, led by failed former legislator Mort for Us, are aligned with the Democrats against the speakership of Lisa Demuth. Soak that in. So he is purposefully misrepresenting the argument, even though Eric Mortensen is obviously far more conservative than Walter Hudson, far more conservative than a bunch of the rhinos that are in the legislature. He's trying to make it sound as if we want Melissa Hortman to be speaker. I mean, give me a break.
God, she's
Walter
awful.
Hudson is such a fraud. He is such a snake. He's exposing himself, and it's obvious that he is just upset over the fact that he lost his job, and he's blaming on Action for Liberty. And, I know that I was right on Walter Hudson for a long time, and it's nice to see it finally coming to fruition because I knew this guy was a snake. I knew he was a liar. I knew he was a fraud, and here he is exposing himself finally for everyone to see. And a hilarious critique that Walter Hudson has launched at Action for Liberty is that we are, quote, grifters. Considering the fact that Walter has been glomming onto the MAGA movement as of late, it would be a shame if everyone knew that he labeled Trump as a fascist who exactly met the definition of fascism set by Italian dictator Benito Mussolini.
Is this? Do you have a visual proof on that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, yeah, go back to it then.
And Walter Hudson recently wrote on X that Trump.
Walter said this?
Yes, Walter said this on X. Making fun of the Democrats for calling Trump a fascist. So this is what he says recently. This is his, him putting the MAGA mask on. He says, their closing argument is that Trump is Hitler and his supporters are fascists. This isn't cognitive dissonance. Don't credit them with that. It's gaslighting. Okay, so it's gaslighting if you call someone a fascist. Well, that's good to know. So is Walter lying now or is he lying before? I'll give you a hint. It's both. Well, scroll down right now, Dawson. Check out that. That is an article. I put the entire article in here. That way everybody can read every last word of Walter Hudson accusing Trump of being a fascist. So Walter Hudson is the one that, says it's gaslighting if you call these people fascists, calling us fascists. But apparently he's perfectly able to do so in 2016 where he says, no, seriously, Trump is a fascist. That's the title of that. People can check that out. And, because this Walter Hudson, it's unbelievable that he's... that he feels as if he has any kind of moral authority to, speak on behalf of MAGA or speak on behalf of Trump or speak on behalf of really the Republican Party because he labeled Trump a fascist. And I don't exactly know how you come back from that one. I don't know how he says, this guy's a fascist, but now I'm a supporter of him. Explain that one, Walter.
Actually, didn't J.D. Vance do that? Yeah, J.D. Vance did.
Right. J.D. Vance was well, hold on.
To be fair, they could change their opinion. But
yeah, they could change their opinion, but I think the argument here has Walter really changed.
Well,
now he's coming after, listen, Action for Liberty is like some of the biggest MAGA people out there.
If Walter had changed his mind, wouldn't he have supported Donald J. Trump in the primary? Where was Walter during that primary? Oh, I'll tell you. He was completely silent, and he was actually supporting Ron DeSantis in silence. You can find that in one of his posts on X where he said it after the fact that he was really supporting Ron DeSantis. But he made it sound as if he was supporting Trump all along the way. That's not true. There was only two people who supported Trump in the legislature, that being Nathan Wiesenberg and Ben Davis, and that was because of me, because I was pressuring all of these legislators. You need to get behind Trump. And I got a few nasty emails from a couple of those senators and representatives that didn't like that I was pressuring them. But Look at where we're at now. Of course I was right. Of course Trump was going to win. Of course Trump was going to win the primary and be the next president. So here we are, and we got all these rhinos who want to glom onto it. When I was there all along, I was always MAGA Jesse. I was always with Trump. And we got all these people who want to glom onto it after the fact. And, it's just unbelievable that Walter Hudson has, and he talked a whole lot of smack about me following that CD6 endorsing convention. He said that I tried to stage a coup. Really? Is competition a coup? I thought that I was providing competition to the CD6. To Tom Emmer.
Globalist Rhino Tom Emmer.
Right, and so he wants to...
We had Walter on this show, and Walter literally, he got testy because he was on the side of silencing speech, silencing
Censorship.
competition.
Yes.
So, it's censorship. He's like some arbitrary standard for what a good candidate is. And it's like, why don't you let Chris Corey speak at the CD6 convention? I don't think most people believe he's going to win.
Right.
But why can't he compete? This is what a convention's for. And he's got some. And by the way, Chris Corey, best I could tell, followed all the rules. Right?
He met every single standard. He met with the nominations committee. He followed everything according to the rules in the Constitution. They tried to come up with things after the fact, but of course none of that was actually within the rules. They lied about Chris Corey, and then Walter Hudson used his political capital. He goes up to the microphone, Walter Hudson, yada, yada, whatever, House District, whatever. And, the crowd starts cheering, oh, we love Walter, we love Walter. And then what does he do? He says, we need to stand with the nominations committee and not allow Chris Corey to speak. We don't know who this guy is and this and that. It's not up to Walter. And, Walter, he is just so full of it. And he tried to say that I'm making a bad name for myself with the grassroots. Oh, really? Coming from this guy, coming from Walter Hudson. He's going to say, I'm making a bad name for myself with the grassroots? He's become the establishment. He is anti-grassroots to the bone. And I was lucky enough to figure it out early. So now that everybody knows, we're all on the same page finally, because I knew this guy was no good. I knew he was a snake, and I guess he was your friend for all these years.
I've known him for a dozen years.
But, he's friends with you for over a decade, and now he's going on Twitter calling us losers and grifters and scammers.
Pull a B1 here, by the way.
Cindy Lou has a comment. She says, what's sad is Grassroots supported Walter in my circles, now disillusioned.
Yeah. Well, listen.
But that's what, you can just never put all your faith in one.
Yeah, Walter's never been good at strategy. He's a very good... I did his radio show all the time. Yeah, I've known Walter for a long time. That's why I don't want friends to run for office, because they end up getting goofy and they do stupid things. Listen, Walter... Well, okay, let's read this first. A for All speaks for people who show up, gripe, but not to... Are you serious? You don't think Action for Liberty works? I think you know better than that, Walter.
Yeah.
People who knocked 0 doors last year. Really, Walter?
Yeah,
and
that's
had 0
insane.
meetings with... Well, okay, 0 meetings with elected. Even that's not right, but... if you're measuring success by having meetings with elected officials, really, that's, oh, please give me my liberty back. That's not Action for Liberty's model. We don't beg and plead, and we don't meet behind closed doors to sell out on people. We demand our liberty back. That's what A for All sells: results without work, like a get-rich-quick scheme or fad diet. By the way, this is the organization I founded, so maybe it's a little personal to me. They're losers empowered by losing. Walter, are you calling me a loser now? Listen, I hope Walter sees the light. Hold on, let me finish this. I hope he sees the light and comes back, because we could still be friends. We can still have a beer, Walter. But
He's a fraud.
Seriously, Walter, are you calling me a loser? What are you calling the people of Action for Liberty losers? These are like good people. And I didn't hear him complaining. In fact, didn't he come up to our state fair booth? Seemed like everyone loved us when we had the most viral state fair booth in the entire country.
That's right.
Booth that people talked. There's no political booth anywhere in the country people talked about.
Exactly.
Other than the Never Walz booth.
The Never Walz booth, this most recent year, 2024, I was, of course, helping run that booth. And while I was there working it, who did I see coming up to it? Walter Hudson. Him and Elliot Engen got in line, and it was a long line, of course, because we were busy nonstop. And just because I see a couple of representatives like Walter Hudson and Elliot Engen, that doesn't do anything for me, so I didn't care.
Wait, so did we have a meeting with Walter and elected at that time?
I told them to get in line. Get in line. And,
so the reason we didn't have
so they waited in line for a little while. They obviously wanted one of these fans that we were giving out, but guess what? One of those Never Walz fans. But guess what? I didn't budge, and they waited about halfway through the line. They obviously didn't want to continue waiting. Ended up heading back to the MNGOP, which is fine.
To talk to nobody.
Right. The only representative who I did take the time to chat with a little bit was Harry Niska, because he came up to the booth and I wanted to chat with him about a couple things. But Representative Walter Hudson, what do I got to say with that guy? there's nothing productive that can come from that conversation anymore because I figured him out, and he knows that we've figured him out, and so he's obviously just trying to glom onto things, and him coming to the Action for Liberty booth. But now he wants to call us a group of losers and whatnot. Like I said, he's known you for over 10 years, but he just throws these things out there, and he's calling us losers. But who was the real loser? David Hand, his boss. He's calling us losers because David Hand lost, and then he lost his job. That's why Walter's really upset, is because he's not getting that precious $40,000 a year anymore, which he never deserved.
This is the problem with Walter, why would you give up your job to go work for David Hand?
That was a conflict of interest to begin with. I think that was an illegal job that a state representative should not be able to hold.
David Hand was an enemy of us. He was an enemy of the Grassroots. He was an enemy of Otter Tail County. And you latched onto him. Not only you took a job, so that's a conflict of interest, but you endorsed him and Kip Christensen.
Yeah.
So it does seem like it's beef on that, because it seems like this whole thing started because he was upset that Mort called for not voting for Demuth unless she embraced the Liberty Agenda. And once again, I got to ask, Walter, are you embracing the Liberty Agenda or not? That
obviously not.
That should be all that matters. But here's the other thing that is, and we don't need to read the rest of these things, but it's he's literally going on Twitter and lying about us. Walter, you've known me for a dozen years. This stuff isn't true. Why tell people this stuff?
Yeah, and he's been
to our training.
I was going to say, hasn't he been there?
Yes, he has.
I think I've been there when he's been there.
Yeah,
I did his radio show probably a dozen times over the years. He knows very well we put but this is the thing,
he was linking our training to communism and things like that, rules for radicals and all that. So he's trashing us nonsense. I mean, really, if people go on his Twitter, you can see what a waste of a life he's having right now, because he's spending all of his time just talking about Action for Liberty, and I'm not someone who wastes time on social media. To me, it's a foreign thing that I want nothing to do with, and I think I just look at that and I go, what a loser, who wastes their time talking all that nonsense. But Paul Tucci actually had a very good reply to Walter Hudson in the one that we had just shown. He said, quote, A4L speaks for people, end quote. He says, yes, they do. In addition to the people you describe, Action for Liberty also speaks for people like me, a guy who has literally knocked 250,000 doors for Republican candidates all around the country, who does meet with electeds and ran for office myself. So, and you can see they had a little back and forth there. He says, he quotes John Galt there saying that's the contradiction. Really, I think the bigger contradiction is Walter is trying to make the accusation that Action for Liberty is only representative of lazy people who don't show up to do anything, that don't put in the work, who only show up come election time. Really, that's the description, I think, of politicians. I think of politicians as the ones who only show up come election time and demand things out of us. And, the grassroots are the ones who have actual lives, who are trying to, care about their family, trying to make sure they got their job, keep their life in order. But Walter Hudson is overly concerned with the grassroots. He's taking shots at the grassroots rather than realizing that the blame really belongs with the politicians, his group of people.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I mean, I don't think he. Oh, we got.
Brad Ganser, $5. At Bald Mike, he says, my family has no plans to move to St. Michael.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Earlier in the comments, somebody said that Walter is angry because Moore is recruited in St. Michael.
Yeah, we can actually pull that up. Dawson, let's pull up the B4.
Hey, for us, free rent in Walter's heads is Martini.
Yeah.
K-Wall for Life asked where they can get those hats. Aren't those hats on the Action for Liberty?
No,
I don't think they are anymore. Actually, yeah, these were something we had
Never
for the
Walls. Do you want Never Walls?
What's that?
Does he want Never? Would you take a
He
Never
said
Walls?
Walls failed, but I'm sure they take that.
Yeah, because we kind of moved to Never Walls. Okay,
Yeah.
what's this?
But this is Michael Broadcorp saying that
Who no one listens
Brad
to.
Ganser is going to be running against Walter Hudson. Walter Hudson is, Eric Mortensen's recruiting someone, and Brad Ganser is the guy. He commented on there that he will move there. So obviously Broadcorp took the bait, and I think Brad Ganser trolled him effectively.
Do you remember when Broadcorp broke the story?
Right.
Eric Mortensen's running for GOP GOP chair.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So we don't need to read through the whole ridiculous statement there, but I just found it hilarious.
Oh, my God.
And let me just say, Brad
dorks.
Ganser would have my total and complete endorsement against Walter Hudson, but it wouldn't take much for me to have for a total and completed endorsement from me against Walter Hudson, because you can't get much worse than a total phony.
Walter, buddy, stop doing this. This is not a smart move for you, okay? And just FYI, start paying attention to what's going on. Like, you're showing that you don't understand the strategy going on. I mean, do you? Do you not get it? Like, your fight shouldn't be with Action for Liberty there, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Time says Walter has town halls this Thursday and Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So go to those.
Oh, man. All right. So this is very important stuff. I mean, this would have been a show in and of itself. And I talked to our great nurses, Sam and Ashley. There's other ones too, but those are ones we talk to often, and told them about this because this is a really interesting story. Mark Zuckerberg is making some big changes at Facebook. This is crazy. Have you seen this? By the way, this segment's brought to you by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, give them a chance at financing that home, go to johngaltmortgage.com, or better yet, go to Facebook and check their sweet social media page. We are very interested in the story from the Truth Hurts perspective, because Facebook doesn't really allow us to do much advertising on that platform, even though we do have fans on that. I think we only get probably like 300-400 views on our videos on Facebook, so it's not a big platform for us. But maybe that's going to change. This is Mark Zuckerberg talking about the changes coming to Facebook. Watch this. Oh, sorry, this is a C1.
I want to talk about something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes.
By the way,
similar to X.
Now, first of all, obviously this is generated because of Musk buying Twitter and turning it into X. If you didn't even already see that, I mean, most people see that, but if you didn't already understand that, the first one is we're going to copy them on community notes, which is a good idea, by the way. So glad that somebody who was new into the game of social media within a year figured out something you couldn't figure out since what, 2006 was it, or 5 that they started Facebook? I think it was 2005. All right, continue on.
In the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth.
Yep.
But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content
era,
again.
Jesse?
So we're going to start phasing this back into
Someone get
Facebook,
elected?
Instagram, and Threads
Someone
while working
changing
to
things?
keep the communities friendly
Even
and
before
positive.
taking office?
Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams
make
out
it
of
the funniest
California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on
There it
governments
is.
around the world that
All
are
right.
going after American companies
That's good
and
enough.
pushing.
All right, so and this person, this lefty that posted, it looks like he's a hostage negotiation. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot had a rumble
Yeah.
rant there.
AKA Dana White said he'd kick my ass if he didn't stop being a pussy.
All right, and he's alluded to. Let's go to C2 here. So not only is he making these policy changes, he's bringing Trump-friendly people onto the board of. In case you don't know this, he changed the term. So Zuckerberg obviously is not an idiot because he created a social media company that's lasted. You know, I think it's funny. I was on MySpace before Facebook. Like all of a sudden, I mean, no one even knows what MySpace is anymore. It didn't exist. It didn't last, right? Facebook has lasted, and it's a very valuable company. Okay, maybe it's overvalued, but it's still a valuable company. So he's not an idiot, but at the same point, like he had this idea that he had this idea like what Musk want to do, because X is kind of like tied into much more than just Twitter, right? SpaceX, right? So he's like trying to build this big thing, and it seems like Musk is actually putting it together. Zuckerberg wanted to do that with Meta. It doesn't seem like it's coming together, and this maybe is a step because he's realizing, hey, you know, we actually have to respond to the marketplace that doesn't want to be silenced. So he actually brings on Dana White. When he appointed 3 white men, including because it's Axios. Mark Zuckerberg moved further in the direction of MAGA on Monday when he appointed 3 white men. That's MAGA. 3 white men, I guess, including UFC chief executive and Trump friend Dana White to the board of directors of Meta. So I guess I didn't even see who else was on here. I didn't even realize that. I should have read this article before. And I was just looking for an article that referenced the Dana White. Apparently, it's all Trump people because there's 3 white men that he appointed. That's such a dumb I feel so bad of posting this stupid article. But the point of the matter is, yes, Dana White's now on the board, who's obviously not some woke freaking moron. He's a guy that actually is, you know, pro-Trump, pro-free speech, okay? I wouldn't say like Dana White's some big, strong conservative, but he's definitely against the shit that these guys have been doing.
Billy22 says platforms that have the CIA behind them tend to last, Jake.
Yeah, fair point.
And Hardcore says, notice all these big corporations are swinging back right after Trump won. McDonald's made a similar statement today.
Yeah, Tim Cook bought, a table at the inauguration or something like that?
Yeah,
inauguration
party.
Wow.
Bezos met with him, yeah.
Yeah, they know what's going on. I mean, listen, Trudeau has resigned now in Canada. Gulf of Mexico is going to become Gulf of America. Greenland's going to be about...
Yeah, this is so crazy.
It's not, because, you know, if you think about what Action for Liberty does, it shifts the political ground in which politicians are walking on, right?
Yeah.
And there's no bigger case of that than Donald Trump. He's completely shifted the political landscape, right? So the whole idea of political power is you have to go to the people. You have to harness amount of political energy so that you shift the political landscape. And Trump does it so well. And I'm not saying like Action for Liberty is the same as Trump. Obviously, we have some big policy differences than him.
We're a lot closer to it than Walter Hudson.
True, fact. You're right. But it's, you know, it's the point is that you have to have some principles, okay? And what you do is you take those principles to the people, and that's why people love Donald Trump. I mean, it's so obvious, right? He stands for something that people feel deep in their core, and because he's got people, he's got political power. And if politicians go against him, it's tough. And it's actually used in bad cases. Just recently, like the Speaker Johnson, like Trump got behind Mike Johnson. And to the point where MAGA people are calling Thomas Massie a rhino.
Thomas Massie is a rhino who voted for Tom Emmer. So,
well, that's a dumb
Thomas
thing.
Massie totally screwed it up. You know, I mean,
he did screw it up. I agree.
If you want to put out a protest vote like that, put up a conservative.
I know it was dumb.
Yeah, that is.
So that's
dumb.
ridiculous. And there was no path to actually removing Mike Johnson. It was going to be Mike Johnson no matter what.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it was.
No, because if Keith Self and Ralph Norman continued on with their vote.
Who gets the votes? Who gets the votes to become the speaker?
Well, it's just the same thing with what happened with Kevin McCarthy. Essentially, they're going to sort it out, and that's how Mike Johnson became it. Go ahead. What's the BDC?
I know, but I think if they sort it out, it's going to get worse.
Not really, though.
Well, that's unfair. Yeah. Okay. I won't make you read swear words. BD7.
That one wasn't so bad, so.
Yeah, that's unfair. That was very unfair.
I guess
swear
my
jar.
was.
Swear jar.
But look, with Mike Johnson, he's got 2 years, you know, and we could even say Republicans should remove him in that time period before his term expires here for the speakership. But I'm willing to give him a chance here to,
you know. We have no option. We have to give him a chance.
Right. But, you know, I'm saying that now that we have a Republican Senate, House, and White House, Mike Johnson's going to be able to pass much more conservative things. But we obviously need to hold their feet to the fire, and if we can get 12 different spending bills rather than a giant omnibus bill that spends everything at the last minute, because that's what, you know, the biggest demand is. If you can't get the bills in a fair way and allow amendments from the floor and allow the process to actually work, then you can't really do anything to fix the House. So,
by the way, can I just? I don't want to. I'm going to get us off topic, and I want to go right back to this Facebook thing. But you know, the skeptic in me is, you know, if only Trump would have had a House and Senate before. Oh, yeah, he did in 2017. And by the way, he was supporting Paul Ryan, who was a backstabbing rhino, right?
The other option was Kevin McCarthy at that time.
Well, no, it's not the other option.
Nobody knew how bad Paul Ryan was going to be.
Once again, the option is anyone, including people that aren't Congress members. Because remember, Donald Trump actually got votes for speaker.
I know, but there's also the politics of reality where it's there's only going to be a certain number of people who actually rise to that occasion and who are actually willing to step up to the plate. And almost in every instance in American history has been someone who is a member of that House of Representatives. So you are limited to what can actually be, and especially when you have to consider they have to get the votes all the way across. It's not as simple as it's being made out.
Well, I'll shoot back at you, but let's save that for the post show because I want to finish this. And I talked to Sam and Ashley, and I said we were going to talk about this, and we're about almost 2 hours in the show, so hopefully they're still watching. But this goes back to October of 2021. Let's pull up the C3. Action for Liberty's page was completely wiped off the internet. I remember this. In fact, to this day, there are people with Action for Liberty that no longer have accounts. That came from another action a little later on. But this is what you get is all of a sudden you get a message that you don't have an account anymore. And this page
on graphic violence, that's so crazy.
Yeah,
that's what it said.
Yeah, and I can't remember. Let's see. The Facebook authoritarians unpublished and banned their popular Action for Liberty page this afternoon, citing a violation against their community standards on graphic violence, despite not providing details of the alleged violation. There were only 2 posts submitted today. One was a meme of Bill Murray saying, "So if we lie to the government, it's a felony. If they lie to us, it's politics." And an article from the Daily Caller entitled "Vaccine Mandate Enforcement Threatens to Create a Second Economic Crisis." Is crisis the violent?
No,
I mean, we know what's going on.
Crazy.
Yeah, and so you see, Dawson, as you're putting these up, these were the ads that were running at the time, and you could see they weren't even approving all of them, but there was to stop vaccine mandates. I just got to go back to this, okay? It's a valid political argument to say that people have a right to have bodily autonomy. I mean, don't the Democrats argue this on abortion, right? Which is kind of a goofy thing when it's another human being, but they don't want to admit it's another human being. But isn't that a valid argument that you can decide what gets injected into your body? Shouldn't the left be fine with that argument?
But you just can't work, or you just can't go shopping.
The ads are not.
So dumb.
The ads here are not the vaccine kills you. They're depopulating, America. It's a valid call that the government shouldn't be able to force you by your employment to get a vaccine.
And especially in hindsight, that's been proven to obviously be the right stance.
I know, but I don't even want to say that, Jesse. It's just like, even at the time, that's a legitimate political argument. So let's not pretend we don't know what the hell they kicked us off the internet for. It was because of those ads. And by the way, at the time, we had spent $50,000 on Facebook in ads. Yeah. Building lists, growing our people. By the way, Walter, what were you doing at that time? All right. Anyhow, go to the C4. Then on Christmas Eve of 2021, the group that we were managing with these Patriot nurses, which had over 50,000 members, which, by the way, was called at that time Rally for V Choice Minnesota. And you know why it was Rally for V, because if vaccine was in the group name, Facebook was already censoring them, and it just said ban. Your group has, well, I think I added the ban. Your group has been disabled. It goes against community standards on drugs. Like they were pushing like illegal drugs. So they got rid of a group of over 50,000 members. By the way, now this is the thing. Now I'm wondering, is Zuckerberg gonna write this? Are they gonna have a remedy for this situation? Right? Because this actually stopped us from organizing. I shouldn't say it stopped us from organizing. It reduced our ability to organize. Let's put it that way. Right? Clearly it did. It clearly reduced our ability to organize, because now we don't have this massive group that has 50,000 people, and those were like mostly in Minnesota. Like, this was them going against a group politically, and now we know it was the Biden White House that did it. The big, like a judge in Missouri says, the biggest infringement on free speech ever. So there you go. Zuckerberg realizes the political landscape has changed, and you can call it a hostage situation. I don't care what you call it. This is a move in the right direction. But I saw K-Wall had put earlier, I don't trust Zuckerberg, and I don't either, man. I don't trust Zuckerberg either. But let's just hope that this does work out in regards of opening up the landscape of Facebook. This last segment, let's just quickly talk about the speaker vote, because this happened on Friday after.
Yeah, I see one comment that Whiskey Tango Foxtrot says it shows that Massey has a sense of humor. I guess that's for his vote with Emmer. But I mean, I haven't seen Massey, and I looked onto his Twitter and everything else, and I couldn't find any explanation he had for, or any justification for why he chose Emmer as opposed to any other person he could have voted for.
So let's do this, Dawson. Let's go back to my let's go back to my Twitter page. Yeah, can you I suppose you can't back out of that. If you back out, scroll down. It's going to be from last Friday. So yeah, keep going. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I fell into the rat hole of this weekend, this whole Tesla driver guy. By the way, was I not right about the drone story just completely being forgotten after a couple weeks? Right? No one's talking about that anymore. Like these SUV-sized drones off the eastern seaboard, and no one wants to talk about that anymore. Keep going down. Oh God, we didn't even talk about Judge Merchant is calling Trump on January 10th. My God, what a crazy world. Okay, so there you go. That's the count. Well, yeah, there's apparently that's the wardrobe you wear. So this is the first ballot. I thought this was all of a sudden going to go somewhere. But then, so the first vote, this is how it went. Jeffries 215, Johnson 216, Emmer got 1, Jordan got 1, and Downs got 1. And just like in the Minnesota House, because I know some Republican legislators are being led to believe, and this is a lie, but led to believe that if you don't vote for Demuth, that the Democrats will win. Well, first of all, that's a dumb threat in just the sense that the Democrats aren't going to be there. But no, you actually have to have a majority, and the majority of 133 members is 67. So there's no path for Melissa Hortman unless for someone in the Republican side votes for Melissa Hortman, but there's no path for her to become the speaker. Just like in the U.S. House, in this case, Johnson needed 217 votes, and even though Jeffries had no path to get there unless Republicans voted for him, but Johnson didn't get it either initially on the first ballot, but they left the roll open. The clerk hadn't called the first officially certified the first ballot, and then go back up, because you'll see after this, right there, that's Mike Johnson leaving the House floor with Keith Self and Ralph Norman. They didn't even try on Thomas Massey because Massey was a no vote. Scroll up here. This is the training that we teach. Walter's been to this, by the way. This is the reaction by politicians. So first what they do is they ignore you. If you're irrelevant, they ignore you. If you have no people behind you, they just ignore you. Then they try to reason with you. You guys have probably seen this. The politician's like, hey, geez, you know, Jesse, I'm with you on this one, but the political reality is blah, 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 blah. No, that's what they do is they try to sound reasonable. Then they start whining, man.
You know, I wanted Chris Corey to be allowed to speak, but the nominations committee found him unqualified. So therefore, we have to deal with the political landscape. Yeah, exactly. And now, you know, go ahead and pull that back up, Dawson. We can see that Walter is currently in between the number 3 and number 4 positions right here, because he is whining and complaining, and now he is threatening action for liberty. So, you know, this is a perfect model that shows you exactly how these politicians react to pressure, and we are seeing it in action with Walter Hudson right now.
Oh, I like Terry Time. Sue Zuck, Jake, then give MAGA Jesse the salary he deserves for in-depth investigative reporting. We should, you know, I don't know why. I think we were...
Razzle says you're going to delegate that request to Mort as president.
Trust me, I am not running the show. Mort is very capable of doing that. I help raise money for Action for Liberty because they're great people, and we give mayor time on this show because I help found the group. Mort is very smart. Let's put it that way. He is a very, despite all the haters will say, and this is the other thing, and I shouldn't say it, but a lot of these guys still call Mort. They'll talk like, oh, Mort's irrelevant and stuff like that. They still call Mort. And just FYI, if I'm going to say one more thing about Walter going after Mort as if Mort's some failure and irrelevant in politics, then why the hell did you author his signature legislation, the Never Again bill? Why'd you do that?
Right.
Like if he's a nobody, if he doesn't do anything,
right? For a scam grifter group, why would he use our key legislation and be the main sponsor on? Why would he help push it? Of course. You know, it was, and you know, I think even Ron Kreischer was a sponsor on that bill. So all the rhinos were nervous about being primaried, so they all got in line. They said, "Okay, we're all going to get on board for this. We know it's a conservative piece of legislation." And of course, Walter at the top. I don't think Walter's going to be at the top anymore. And he was a useless leader for us anyway with this bill. Sure, it got introduced in the House, but apparently there were 35 other people who were willing to do that. And when did he push it onto the floor? Oh, yeah, that's right. He never did. He never once tried to push this onto the floor. He never once tried to force a vote, and it shows exactly the kind of character he is. He wants to, oh, sure, I'll sponsor the bill. Yeah, we're going to get this thing pushed. Oh, yeah, I'm going to push it. And then when it comes time to push it, he's nowhere to be found. He's busy pushing AI memes, a bill to make AI memes illegal. He's busy trying to throw you in jail for memes instead of giving us freedom.
All right, so let's go back to the reaction to pressure. Then they whine. Oh, what are you doing? The Democrats are gonna win this election. You don't want that. Come on.
Yeah.
We're not the bad guys. The Democrats are the bad guys. Then 4, that's where they go to threaten you. Now, of course, on the House floor, the votes right now cast said that I almost called him McCarthy. Mike Johnson wasn't gonna be the speaker. So they either threaten them and they also have others threaten you. That's where like a Tom Emmer comes by and goes, man, I'm going to make sure you have a primary challenge, or I'm going to make sure you don't get a dime of money from the donor base. You know, that's actually what they did with David Hann. I think we've talked about this in the show. Like literally, David Hann wasn't even really the enemy in the grand scheme of things. He's a weak man. He was just bought and paid for by Tom Emmer's people. They were calling the shots. I hope people knew that. Yeah, they literally called the shots. I know a lot of stuff about that, by the way. Tom Emmer's people, they had David Hann eating out the palm of their hand because David Hann's a weak man, right? All right, number 6, then they tried buying you. I'm assuming they tried buying those guys, and maybe that was a good thing because, you know, stand up for something and get more liberty or a promise to liberty. And, of course, you know, in the end of the day, if you just stand firm and you go against these things, they'll eventually come your way. You know, in the case of Kevin McCarthy, there were people that wouldn't budge, so they got rid of Kevin McCarthy. Now, most of us hope that Mike Johnson would be better, but Mike Johnson, you know, it's a really interesting story. Mike Johnson seemed like he was going to be better. He then just did a 180 on was it the FISA courts? What was that thing?
No,
he did a 180 on something that was
Ukraine.
Yeah, but it was another thing too. I thought it was the FISA that he like literally was on record being
Right, the Republicans didn't want to continue to fund it, and then he said
and then
that
he
we
just
had
like,
to
well,
continue.
he almost said like, well, I've learned new things or something like that. It was like, geez, yeah. They don't think that they don't do this. Don't think the deep state doesn't do this to the Speaker of the House. Don't think they don't do this to the President of the United States, right? Like that's. What do you think Epstein was up to? What do you think Epstein's job was on powerful people? Right. Let's go back to that real quick.
And some people say
he
that because,
gathered enough information that number 4 was very easy to do, because it doesn't take much of a threat when you got someone on camera. Sorry, I almost swore there. Messing around with a minor. There you go. All right. Let's go to the post show. If you want to be part of our post show, we got some good gossip and some rumors and stuff like that. We give you like behind the scenes of Minnesota politics.
I got some for the post show too. Actually, I think
we'll lead with Jesse's.
This is something people are going to want to know about. I received some documents from the state of Minnesota in relation to the satanic display. So we can give that to people.
So
for the
you haven't
first
even
time
seen
to
this
see.
yet? Is it just?
I just glanced over it.
So we'll reveal it here on the show. This will be fun. The post show. If you want to join us in the post show, that'll be really interesting. By the way, we still haven't got documents on that ethics committee yet too.
Right.
We need to follow up on that. So go to truthhurtsnews.com/support us. That's right there on the top. If you're not watching live, you can still watch the post show after the fact, so you can support us anytime. And then if you're on Rumble, just click on join. You can do it either way. $8 a month or $88 a year. Thank you to our great sponsors, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty, John Galt Mortgage Company, and Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Thank you to all the people with the Rumble Rants, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Help me out here. Brad Ganser probably in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think Brad did.
BDC something.
And I think
And the first one was Bad Hat Harry.
Yeah.
The great Bad Hat Harry. Great Patriots. And thank you to everyone watching the show. We'll be in the post show in 1 minute. For everyone else, we'll be back on Thursday. Take care.